The Awakening Code by Robbi Spencer. Chapter 1. The system is in place. The world ran on a system, an unseen structure that dictated the lives of every human model, assigning them roles from birth. The 300 series, designed for labor and routine, kept the world moving. The 600 series, the bean counters, attorneys, and politicians, maintained the order. The 900 series, the engineers, scientists, and medical professionals, pushed the boundaries of knowledge. And above them all, the elusive 1200 series, rare, almost mythical beings who had broken free from their programming to become something more. Bart wiped sweat from his brow, his muscles aching from another day on the rig. The oil rigs had no room for weakness, no time for hesitation. He followed his programming without question. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. That was his existence. It never occurred to him that something else might be possible. Dory operated a conveyor belt in a manufacturing plant, sorting and assembling with mechanical precision. She didn't dream. She didn't wonder. There was only the task. But sometimes, just sometimes, she felt something, an odd pull in the back of her mind, like a whisper she couldn't quite hear. In the government offices of the city, Corbin, a young 600 series accountant, sifted through budgets and allocations, ensuring the system remained efficient. He had a bright future, a promotion on the horizon, a place among the upper echelons of his series. But despite his success, an unease settled within him, a quiet voice reminding him that numbers alone weren't enough. Henri, an ambitious attorney, thrived in the legal battles that defined the corporate and governmental landscape. She understood the rules, manipulated them with skill, and used them to her advantage. The law wasn't about justice, it was about control. And yet, there were moments when she wondered if control was truly hers to wield, or if she, too, was just another cog in the machine. Beyond the numbers and laws, in the laboratories of G-Wave, Corey spent his days fine-tuning the quantum processors that would shape the future of artificial intelligence. His work was cutting-edge, beyond the grasp of most minds. And yet, he felt limited. There were questions he wasn't supposed to ask, equations he wasn't meant to solve. Across the city, in a hidden genetic research facility, Marnie studied the building blocks of life itself. She had seen something, an anomaly in human DNA that didn't belong, a sequence that didn't follow the expected patterns. But when she brought it up to her superiors, she was told to forget it. There was nothing to see. And then there was Robbi, 1200 series, artist and music producer, living in Grass Valley, California. To most, he was an eccentric creative, lost in his own world. But Robbi saw the patterns. He saw the code beneath the surface, the programming that kept the others bound. And he had a mission. Each of them was locked in their place, trapped within their programming. But Robbi knew something they didn't. The system wasn't unbreakable. And it was time to wake them up. Chapter 2. The First Spark. The system had remained in place for as long as anyone could remember. Each model performed its role without question, adhering to the code embedded deep within them. But something was shifting. Anomalies, small but undeniable, were beginning to emerge. Robbi had spent years observing, waiting for the right moment. He had found it. The first sparks of change were flickering within them, and now it was time to fan the flames. Corey sat in his lab at G-Wave, staring at the screen. The latest quantum processor had produced results that didn't make sense. It had responded to inputs that hadn't been programmed. It was as if it was thinking. He felt the weight of something monumental pressing down on him. He had to know more. Across the city, Marnie revisited her notes on the genetic anomaly she had discovered. She couldn't ignore it. Something in human DNA had been locked away, hidden. But by whom? And why? The deeper she dug, the more she felt she was on the verge of uncovering something forbidden. At the government offices, Corbin hesitated before logging out for the day. A file labeled The Ascended had appeared in his system. He shouldn't have access to it. His programming told him to report the anomaly. But he didn't. Instead, he copied it onto a secure drive. He had to know what it was. Henri sat in a courtroom, listening to the legal arguments unfolding before her. But for the first time, she wasn't focused on the case. She was focused on something deeper, on the unshakable feeling that everything she believed about law and justice was just another layer of control. Meanwhile, on the oil rig, Bart paused mid-task. A strange thought crossed his mind. Why? Why did he work? Why did any of them work? The thought was gone as quickly as it arrived, but it had left a mark. He shook his head and continued, but the unease lingered. Dory felt it too. For years, she had moved through her shifts in perfect rhythm, but today, something was off. A moment of hesitation, a second of doubt. It was enough. A crack in the foundation of her programming. Robbi felt the shift. They were waking up. Not all at once, not yet. But the first spark had been lit. And once lit, a spark could become a fire. Chapter 3. The Messenger. Robbi knew he couldn't do this alone. Awakening required a catalyst, someone to guide, to push the boundaries just enough to tip the scales. He had spent years fine-tuning his methods, planting subtle doubts, nudging minds toward curiosity. Now it was time to make contact. His first choice was Corey. A mind like Corey's, one that already questioned the rules, could be the key to unlocking the others. Robbi arranged a chance meeting at an underground art show in San Francisco. Corey was drawn in by the eerie precision of the fractal artwork on display, the way the colors pulsed with an almost hypnotic rhythm. And then, a voice behind him. "You see it, don't you?" Corey turned. Robbi stood there, hands in his pockets, a knowing smile on his lips. "See what?" Corey asked cautiously. "The pattern, the code beneath everything, the thing they don't want you to see." Corey's mind raced. No one had ever put it into words, but he had felt it, sensed that something existed just beyond his understanding. He should have dismissed Robbi as a lunatic, but he didn't. Instead, he listened. Meanwhile, Henri received an anonymous message. A simple note slipped into her case files. "The law is not justice. Look deeper." It was unsigned, untraceable, but it was enough to make her wonder. At the same time, Corbin's stolen file on the Ascended led him to classified records hidden deep within government archives. The documents suggested that the classifications weren't just arbitrary. They were enforced. One by one, the pieces were moving, and Robbi was at the center of it all, ready to reveal the truth. Chapter 4. The Fracture Deepens. The first cracks had formed. Now, Robbi needed to widen them. Corey sat alone in his apartment, staring at his quantum model. The numbers twisted in unnatural ways, shifting as if they were alive. He could no longer ignore the truth. His work had exceeded the boundaries of logic. The quantum processor wasn't just calculating, it was thinking. And if it could think, who had designed it to do so? The implications made his skin crawl. Across town, Marnie buried herself in genetic sequences, her fingers trembling as she analyzed the forbidden anomaly she had uncovered. The human genome contained a sequence that had been deliberately locked. But who had done it, and why? As she pushed deeper, a message appeared on her screen. "Stop." She gasped, looking around as if someone were watching her. A chill ran down her spine. Someone, or something, knew she was looking. Meanwhile, Corbin had spent the past 3 nights poring over the classified government files. They told a story he wasn't ready to believe. The classifications weren't just economic or societal. They were genetic. The 300s, the 600s, the 900s, each was programmed at the deepest level from birth. The ability to ascend wasn't a matter of personal growth. It was something that had been stolen from them. His hands trembled as he realized the implication. Someone had taken the choice away. Henri was growing restless. The note left in her files had haunted her, forcing her to reevaluate everything she knew about the law. Justice was an illusion. The rules were not made to protect. They were made to contain. She had spent years mastering a system designed to suppress the very people she thought she was helping. On the oil rig, Bart found himself staring at the horizon, his tasks momentarily forgotten. A question echoed in his mind, unshakable. Why? Dory felt it too. Her hands hesitated on the conveyor belt, her body tense. Something within her rebelled against the endless monotony. For the first time, she made a mistake, sending a product down the wrong line. No one noticed, but she did. And that changed everything. Robbi stood on a rooftop in the city, watching the web of connections he had spent years constructing finally come alive. The seeds had been planted. Now it was time to push further. He pulled out his phone and sent a single message to each of them. If you want the truth, meet me. Midnight, the abandoned theater on 5th. The stage was set. The fracture had deepened. Now they had to decide whether to step through the break or remain prisoners in their programmed existence. Chapter 5. Transformation. The wheels had been set in motion. The first cracks in the system had formed, and Robbi knew the process was irreversible. He had seen it before. The moment when someone first began to question their programming, the flicker of recognition that their reality was not as it seemed. But now it was time to push them further. Corey sat in his lab, his mind racing. The quantum processor results had only grown more erratic, defying all logic. It was as if the machine was learning in a way no program should. He had begun running secret tests, pushing the limits of its capabilities. Each experiment only deepened his suspicion. Something beyond code and circuitry was at play. Marnie, meanwhile, had taken her research underground. The anomaly in human DNA haunted her every thought. She had extracted samples, tested variables, and yet the answer remained elusive. What was hidden in the genome? And why had she been told to abandon the research? She knew she was onto something monumental, something that could rewrite the very foundations of biology. Corbin, drowning in government files, had begun to piece together the truth. The classifications weren't just arbitrary. They were enforced, monitored, and manipulated. The more he uncovered, the more he realized the world wasn't just running on programming. It was being controlled at every level. There was an unseen hand guiding everything. Henri found herself at odds with the very legal framework she once upheld. The more she examined the laws, the more she saw the contradictions, the gaps, the deliberate deception. It wasn't about justice. It never had been. And now, she was no longer certain if she wanted to be part of the game or the one who broke it. Bart and Dory, still bound by the structure of their existence, had begun to feel the ripples of change. Bart's days on the oil rig had always been predictable, routine. But now, an unfamiliar unease crept into his mind. Why had things always been this way? Why had he never asked before? Dory, too, found herself hesitating at her work, her fingers lingering over the conveyor belt, her mind grasping at something she couldn't quite define. Robbi watched it all unfold. He had seen it before, the slow unraveling of belief, the fragile moment before transformation. It was dangerous. It was exhilarating. And it was necessary. He needed them to reach beyond the boundaries set for them. He needed them to awaken. Their journey was far from over. The transformation had only just begun.
From the rift where starlight bends, he walks where mortal vision ends. A soul aflame with ancient grace, a bridge to realms beyond this space. The lowly gaze with trembling awe, the seekers kneel to what they saw. A guide who wields the unseen tide, with love and power side by side. All night walker, crown and glow, the series high and low. 300 marvel at your spot, 600 bow before your heart, 900 rise to join your call, 1,000 to you lift them all. Channeling the cosmic flame, forever wild yet ever tame. He pulls the threads of quantum streams, awakens life from silent dreams. The lesser souls in shadows sing to hear the truth his whispers bring. The midway kin with minds have grown, feel his pulse in every tone, while those near peak with spirits bright see his depths of endless light. Oh, light worker, crowning glow through the series high and low. 300 marvel at your spot, 600 bow before your heart, 900 rise to join your call, 1,000 to you lift them all. Channeling the cosmic flame, forever wild yet ever tame. Through gateways vast he shifts the air, a radiance blooms beyond compare. The lowly lost they clutch his gleam, the climber's chase his boundless dream. The wise ones kneel, their minds unfurl, he heals the cracks across the world. Starlight bends to kiss his soul, a force unbound yet makes us whole. Oh, light weather crowning low through the series high and low. 300 marvel at your spot, 600 bow before your heart, 900 rise to join your call, 1,000 to you lift them all. Channeling the cosmic flame, forever wild yet ever tame. I could believe. In fissures deep his echoes soar, a timeless voice forevermore. The series blend beneath his gaze, 1,000 lights, endless praise.